So we're passing around the sign-in sheet for the CAT credits. So go ahead and sign it. If you don't know your license number, don't worry about it. We will find it for you. So just make sure you sign in and sign out so you can get full credit, but I think most everybody knows how that goes. So I'll send it around at the end. It's just kind of a reminder, but just to give you an idea of what the huddle is today, it's senior living, and we're going to talk a little bit about some of the benefits, opportunities that are within the senior living housing dynamic and age, because I think we have some stigma when it comes to what the word senior means. And then we're also going to dive into, so I won't be up here talking as much as I normally do, because you guys know that I can fill plenty of time. So I want it to be more open discussion. So we'll talk a lot about what there is in some of this educational value in placement. And then also want to see kind of some of your experiences that you've had in listings with seniors or estates. And then also just open it up for discussion, because there's a lot of what we're seeing right now, and on your handout is a lot of stats about what the senior living space is. And again, kind of talking about what that stigma is that 55 plus is senior. And that seems very ridiculous, right? So yeah, 55. My dad is 75 and he doesn't want to be called a senior, right? So I think that we have to start changing our vocabulary when it comes to that. But what we found is that in this industry, there's not really a good way to re-vocabularize elderly living, because there are certain needs and there's also different generational and age typecasts that really are going to help you along the way as you sell houses to different age groups. Obviously, we have to talk about fair housing because we cannot be discriminatory based on age. So, I have to throw in fair housing. That's just ingrained in my nature. But we're not necessarily talking about ageism specifically. We're talking about how can we serve the needs of different clientele. This is a different niche. And if you don't know already, and if you haven't been seeing some of the news reports, there's a big wave coming of people that are turning 65, 75, 85. And a lot of that generational wealth is coming from people that are over 65. So 54% of the United States wealth is in ages 65 plus. And that there's also a homeownership stat that I don't have off the top of my head, but it's a really high number that they have houses that they'll either need to downsize, sell to move into a senior living facility, or ultimately, if they pass away, you're going to be dealing with an estate and trust and all the things that come with that. So this is a really big topic. And the more that I educate myself and the more that I find different spaces within the niche, the more information I'm finding. It's a big rabbit hole of things and topics that we don't really talk about. We kind of lump this group in with everybody that we're trying to sell real estate to. And just like as you sell houses, you have to tailor to what your demographic and need is, while still having your own personal brand and voice attached to how you're dealing with clientele in this space. And there are a lot of needs and a lot of different factors that come into play when you're dealing with families, you're dealing with seniors, and you're dealing with the eldest daughter that might be taking over the bulk of decisions. And then you also have health. And that's a big one that we don't necessarily think about in real estate. And so that's why I want to talk about what placement is. And so you may or may not already know this, but we all know the general idea of nursing homes, right? And what we typically think about with a nursing home is very sterile, very depressing, very much that nobody wants to be there. People in that age group don't think that they need to be in there, and they ultimately want to be living in their homes as long as possible. And so the difference in what we're seeing trend-wise in senior living facilities is that it's more of a lifestyle versus a necessary need when it comes to health. So on your handout too, there are different levels of care that you could take a look at. It just goes into what we might have thought was categorized as senior living, but ultimately goes into the different levels. So that 55 plus, you might be looking at somebody that's looking at a 55 plus community where the houses and condos that are sold can only be sold in that. And you have to follow those guidelines, making sure that it's compliant as you're showing them. And then the other directive of care is starting with independent assisted memory care and so forth. And so the independent care, I think, is where that stigma tends to start, right? Where we think, okay, I have to go into a nursing home. And we don't call them nursing homes anymore. They're senior living communities. They are catering to a lot of different things like social engagement, lifestyle activities, less maintenance, sometimes less cost. The cost in and of itself is going to include a lot of things. And we think about senior housing to be expensive. And it can be once you get up into those extra levels of care. As you're getting into more of an independent need, that cost tends to be either the same or it can be less expensive than the home that they're already living in. Because they might be living in a house that's too big for them right now and they can't maintain it. Then you run into deferred maintenance and updates and lawn and all of those care items that cost money. And so getting into an independent living can actually be a benefit for a lot of clients. So in thinking of it in that direction, it's a little bit different than, it's kind of like going to an inclusive resort, right? You know, now it's kind of fun. You get to be around friends. You don't have to deal with a bunch of stuff. You get to, you know, go play bingo and karaoke and have wine tastings, right? So it's a little bit different of a perspective. So the other thing in talking about senior living and placement, it's really important to know who you'll be talking to because there's two main people that you're going to be talking to. One of them could be the senior themselves. And oftentimes that's where we get into more of the assisted and the memory care that we need to have the actual senior involved. But what we're forgetting about is the demographic where the eldest child is starting to think about the declining health of their child or their parent. So, for example, my dad just had his 6th heart attack. I'm starting to think about if he needs to be in this space. So the lead cycle is a lot longer than we're used to. It's a lot longer because people could already be thinking about it, doing their research and trying to find resources so that they can be prepared when the time comes for their parent to actually have a need for it. So they're thinking about, how am I going to even talk to my parents? How am I going to even find a place? What am I going to do with their house, their car, their personal belongings, their dog? They're starting to think about this maybe years before it actually happens. And so that's where being educated and maybe seeing some of these things ahead of time, you can become a resource for them before the actual need is there. So we have a product that we launched, which is Senior Sync, and you guys might have known it beforehand as Adore Mom. And so we've rebranded because ultimately Senior Sync is about 4 different pillars. It's about placement, listings, a vendor network, and also the social engagement, which is extremely important. And we consider ourselves as real estate agents to be part of that social engagement piece because we need to be there as a resource for them and also be a guided, trusted expert. Because once you get into this age group, there's a lot of different expectations as to what they need from you. But with Senior Sync, we've provided it all in one place. And so there's opportunities within our referral program for once you refer someone in and they move in, there's $1,000 referral. And then you get to have the opportunity to create more value, to stay in touch with those clients, to then ultimately sell their home. And alongside that, we have a vendor network that Cass has been working on very, very diligently, that there are vendors that are used to working with estates or downsizing or homes that need some defer or need maintenance or just general repairs before hitting the market. So you have this resource available. So what we find is that when a parent needs to go into a nursing home, which I just did the exact same thing that I said that I wasn't going to call it, a senior community, then that's their main focus is getting their parent into the space. Then suddenly they take a breath and go, great, lawn needs mowed. It snowed. There was a big storm. There might be hail damage. And sometimes people think that they're going to be coming back from a senior living facility. And so the house will sit. So you might have months where these things are happening. So if you can have the conversations ahead of time and have a resource like Senior Sync to be able to facilitate that in your favor and have those resources available, it really does allow for you to maintain contact. It gives you a reason to keep in touch. It gives you the resources that you need, because sometimes when we have, let's say, for example, an estate, we might be the ones that are going over there to check if there was a heavy rainfall to see if there was any flooding in the basement. We might be the ones where they call because the main person in charge of the estate is out of state and they don't have those resources available to them. So if we can continue to be that one person they call, then the likelihood of you being able to sell their home is going to become more higher and the level of trust is going to be better. There's also a case study in your handouts that talks about, oh yeah.
Can you for 1 second just go back and cover what senior placement is, like what's that process?
Yeah, going through the actual process. So,
Cause the service is actually twofold. So one, we're helping you help them, and two, we're helping you. So one of the things that you get to help educate people on, because there's not a lot of education around the fact that this service even exists, is what senior placement is, and the fact that, and then, hey, if they happen to get placed, you get a bonus. It's just a win-win. So do you want to cover what senior placement is, and then maybe touch again on how big the market is going to be? Because you guys really, the market numbers are so big, the demographics are changing. We've seen a lot of move-up buyers, a lot of first-time home buyers, but they're going to shift to where the majority of the market that we're going to be targeting is going to be seniors. So it's going to be people above 65 for the next 10 years. They're going to be transitioning for downsizing or into senior living communities. So if we don't start the marketing and setting ourselves apart for this now, we're going to be behind. Is a huge point.
10,000 people a day turn 65 in the United States. That's a huge number. So we're seeing a lot of that. And like Cass said, the demographics, even within that age group, can be changing based on what their needs are, because they're also aging into a different space. But as you age into a different space, you're not acting like the generation before you. So there's definitely a need to pay attention to this specific niche. And talking more about the placement process, it is actually a lot easier than we think. But when it comes to the families that you're working with, it's an extremely stressful time because there's a lot of options out there and you don't necessarily know where to start. There's a company called A Place for Mom, which you might have heard about, but they're basically just a glorified call center that takes the call and then they shove out the lead to all these senior living facilities, and then the families get inundated with phone calls. And so that's not really a helpful hands-on service. And that's where Senior Sync is different. So we plan on being that person working alongside with the real estate agent and giving them the resources to be able to provide value so that you don't lose that gap in between when they're moving into a facility. So there's a link on here that, or a QR code and a link that shows you how to get started with a referral. But the process is relatively simple. You send in the referral. We will take that from there. We'll contact the family or the senior. We'll find out and do a general discovery about what their needs are. And then we'll fit it with one of the facilities that we have in town. So right now we have over 50, which is 85% of what the market is. So we really have a broad span, especially when it comes to the level, the cost, and what the care needs are, and the location throughout town. So we do have a lot of span in Omaha. And so we'll take that call, we'll then narrow it down to a few places, and then we'll go do the tour with them. So Cass and Lizzie right now will be taking the lead, taking your clients and the senior and their family or whoever the decision makers are, and showing them those facilities. And once you get to those facilities, they have managers and touring agents that will show them around. So it's not, there's not a lot of onus on the real estate agent or the professional to know a lot about it. So they're going to be cared for and handed off in a way where they're with educated, experienced people to get them from one step to the other while still maintaining your relationships with it. So that's an important part because, think about it like when you go to look at an apartment, there's going to be a leasing person there or an agent there. We're just facilitating to narrow it down for them. And by providing that resource, it alleviates a lot of the stress that can come with my parents already sick and I'm worried about them falling today. And I also have to scour through the internet to find a place that may or may not even fit my budget for the actual location and what they're looking for. So we narrow it down for them in a lot easier way than what's out there.
And then, so how it works, like she said, you get started, if you, let's say you come across a lead and, they need this, they don't realize that there's a resource out there. And you say, hey, I can get you connected. We actually do have a resource to assist in that. And the benefit for you on that side is that we can ideally help that family because these things will, like she said, linger on for years if they're not addressed. Get that family and that senior, get that house cleared out and then get them out of that home, I should say, and then you can sell the house. I do want to clarify that, this has nothing to do with the listing. This is just for placement. So you're not giving up the listing in any capacity.
I think that's, for me, that's the question, one of the questions I get the most is people don't really understand how the referral is different than that they're not giving away their listing. I think they have that fear that they're gonna lose their listing.
Nope, not gonna lose your listing. We want you to keep all your listings. If there's a scenario that you come across and you're like, I'm busy, this listing is just gonna be. Cause there's family dynamics, there's emotions, there's parts of trying to figure out who the decision maker is, who says they're the decision maker, but really it's someone else. So if you ever come across one that's messy, you're welcome to refer it and we'll give you a referral fee. But most people are gonna keep their own listings. So as a way to assist in the fact that this is a brand new thought process, and this is a division and a marketing niche that is not currently being done in any formal or big capacity. So what we've done to make it easier for people who are interested in just adding this to their repertoire of things that they can sell is if you pull out your phones, you can go to seniorsync.com and we have, I have little examples here too of where you can access our vendors and then also some editable Canva marketing templates that we will be updating for you to be sure that you always have new content to send out. So if you're marketing to your sphere, this is a great way to just add another page, throw it in there, and you never know. So you could potentially get a home sale and placement bonus.
And the good thing about, or something to think about with the marketing templates is, again, it's very plug and play. And also you want to start thinking about some of the timeframes that it would be beneficial to send out. So after the holiday weekends, that's a really big time, especially Easter, Christmas, Thanksgiving, because a lot of times families live out of state. And so they're only visiting their parents at certain times of the year. So it might have been 6 months or a year before they've seen them and suddenly realize that they've deteriorated. So it's an opportunity for you to be able to reach out to some of your demographics that might be that in that oldest child, that 40 to 65 is going to be your sweet spot there, to then provide that resource to ask and have certain things that are like, I have these resources, I can be available. If you have questions, you don't have to stress out, you can go here and find it. And so there's definitely opportunities within marketing. The other thing is I did a search through Pinpoint, which is through Better Homes and Gardens. We've got a database that's through what used to be Meredith Corp. And it targets, and you can put your demographics in and find certain houses and addresses that fall within it. And in that, they also have mature buyers or mature sellers and empty nesters. So I did just a search in Omaha only, and I did mature, and it came up with 36 to 8,000 houses that fall within that mature clientele. So there's definitely opportunities within your databases themselves to be able to target and provide the value with it without without violating fair housing.
And if
Throw
you
that in
think
there.
about it, everybody knows multiple real estate agents. So if you are like sending these things saying that you actually understand on some capacity what this family is going through emotionally, what, you know, like you understand the placement process, you understand the risk for the senior in the heat, you understand how these things can be impacting them. It really does set you apart from maybe another agent that they would have called. Because that agent has never said that they have any sort of specialty in seniors. And this is their mom, this is their dad, you know, this is someone that they want to feel like they picked the best person. So I think that just adding in even a little blurb, if it's something that you want to create, I'm happy to give you access to our branding if you want to just add in a little something. Just so if you have sellers that are ever in this, find themselves with this sort of listing, they think, who do I know that actually knows about like this type of home or this type of sale? And it could be, you know, it could be the difference maker.
Yeah, and it's,
Is there a fee to the client, or to ask it in a more crass way, how do you guys get paid? Do you get like a referral fee from the senior living facility that the client chooses?
correct.
Okay.
So there's no fee, just like with a buyer's agent, there's no fee to the actual client. We do get compensated through the actual facility, and that's how we can also give the referral bonus to
Okay.
you guys to be able to do that.
So, so I'm kind of going through this with my parents too, and they're trying to figure out how to move money where to make sure that if something should happen, then it's the least irritation to me to take care of everything for them. Does this senior sync include any type of financial advice or resources as far as everything should be in a irrevocable trust versus letting it go to probate, or move all of your money into some
All your
other
big
account
accounts.
for
Yeah.
your comic book collection? But does Senior Sync provide any type of financial resources and advice to do that as well?
Yes, absolutely. And so that's also part of our bigger plan as well, is to be able to have somewhere where you can actually live chat or call and talk to someone about those specific situations that might come up. And then also within the vendor kit, there's attorneys, there's advisors, there's a lot of people that you can reach out to. And that's why being within the senior sync is different than a lot of other places, is because we're gearing it towards the needs of seniors that go outside of what their house just is. So it's gonna have your estate planners, your attorneys, your estate sales. You know, it's gonna have a more dynamic set of vendors than what we typically assume and have on hand as realtors. Because we might have an attorney, but they might not specialize in elder law.
Okay.
So in having those resources available and at a bigger space where we can have those conversations, or like you could call in as an agent and talk to us, or talk to one of the vendors about what's maybe going on with your client, to just vet them first, to be able to get in a space where you're like, okay, you mentioned that you're worried about your mom and this situation. So here's this contact, reach out to them, make sure you told them that I called or that I referred you to it. But I think not what we're seeing, but I would maybe ask a question to the group. Have you gone through this or know somebody that has gone through it, or sold a house where somebody has gone through it? Because I'm going through it right now with my dad, and we're going,
And I actually signed up
Yeah.
just about a year ago. It hasn't gone anywhere, but not on your part, on our part. So when you call in, or when you submit this referral and try to get information, are you doing the same process where you have somebody else talk, like a licensed nurse or somebody? Person that I talked to has that background in geriatrics. I don't remember her name right off the top of my head. But is that still how we do it? We talk to somebody who knows all the different organizations
Yep.
and
Yep, so how it works is you guys will submit via Google form right now. And then I'll call the client or you, depending on, like, Aubrey, we've had a couple of people that it's been their own family. So I would have called you and kind of done like taken me a rundown. And then there's a form we go through. I talk with you about the different levels of care that they might need and finances, et cetera. if, and I'll take this moment to introduce Michelle, if we have partnered with Michelle because she is a bit of a step above us. So let's say you come across a family who, the daughter is like, hey, we gotta get her moved, like, I don't wanna call because she needs to go to the ER. I really wanna try to be proactive and get her in somewhere where she's safer than she is now, something like that. And there's just some family dynamics that are not everyone's on the same page. We will escalate the call to Michelle, who takes more of a coaching approach and has a lot of, do you want to talk a little bit about your
Sure.
company and your
Gonna
experience?
introduce myself. My name's Michelle Magner, and I have been a family caregiver to 5 different family members. My mother-in-law lived with dementia for 12 years. 2 family members with cancer, and then my grandmother's. I worked at Country House Omaha, if you're familiar with that. So I've worked at inside an assisted living memory care, and then also at Brookstone Meadows, just down the street. I was there for 5.5 years. So I've just helped hundreds and hundreds of families and been on this journey myself personally. So I created a company to help families make better decisions faster. And I actually wrote a program called Illuminating Senior Living. So it deep dives everything that nobody wants to know about senior living. Created a course to help families gain a better understanding so they can make those better decisions, including common objections that people have. I don't want to move, I'm not ready, old people live there. And I go through each of those objections and talk about how to navigate that conversation. So part of what our partnership will be is if those calls come into me, the daughter says it's time, her sister's out of town, says nothing's wrong, they're fine, they don't need to move, and you just feel like you're butting your head up against a wall, then I want to make sure that first of all, we have to make sure the older adult is safe. Like number 1, that is a priority for me. And then beyond that, just helping them really get some clarity about what needs to happen, what the options are, and then what the next steps are. All of my communication goes back to Cass. Like I am very well resourced in Omaha and around the country, but everything that comes in is back to you. So it's like staying in your bubble and your ecosystem to ensure that you get the sale. I have personally inherited 3 homes full of a lifetime worth of belongings. 3. 3. By the last house, I took sticky notes and Q-tips. And 1 piece of furniture. Yeah. So I just have a lot of passion for making sure that older adults are getting the right best care that they need and making sure that families aren't delaying making the decision to sell the house or move someone because it is delaying the care for the older adult. And in my industry, the senior care, senior living industry, we commonly say people wait too long. And I'm sure you've experienced that as an agent, just knowing the consequences of what's happened because they didn't listen, they didn't get things like that. So
it's a very well-rounded intake process, and I just want you guys to know that your clients are gonna be in good hands, because not only do they have us, we're passionate, but we have Michelle's passion, which just is outside of the walls of this room.
I have a podcast as well. So I was gonna give you my business card, and on the back, there's a QR code. It's a free podcast. There's over 180 episodes. But just as you're working with families, you can share, oh, there's this great podcast also that could be valuable.
It's a huge resource to people who don't even know up from down, coming to, this type of scenario. Does anyone have a question?
Yes, when you're sourcing the different facilities, does part of that decision come in for them to be able to handle people during the whole process, or at least a good part of the process? Since my mother decided that single family house was no longer for her, and she moved into Elmwood Tower, but she had lived in 5 different places since that. So, and she's got Alzheimer's right now. She's at Douglas County Health Center, which has been the best of the 5. But in the rest of the others, she was pretty much invited to leave in those, and then you have to go through the process again, and then you know, the other one doesn't think it's funny that she likes to pull the fire alarm. So then you go to the next
You gotta
one.
move again, you gotta move again.
Exactly. So how do you handle with that?
So our hope is that we do enough discovery to understand where you're at and then pick a facility, community
Community.
that is the right fit for not only, let's say she was backed up 2 levels from where she is now, but you could kind of see the writing on the wall, that that's coming down the pipe. Maybe she could be over here at option A, but really she needs to be at option B, because if we put her in A right now, she's gonna move to B. So we'll try to steer you towards, like, this is probably gonna be the option that's best in the sense that you won't have to move her again. Like, she can, progress, if the situation progresses the way that we think it will, she'll still be safe here. So, and then we always have Michelle to really help
Have those conversations.
have those conversations.
The word facility is incredibly triggering. It's very, very triggering. So I would avoid that word. Just
Yeah, don't.
eliminate it from your vocabulary.
It is hard to do though.
It's very hard to do because there are SNFs, either, or skilled nursing facilities, but you're right, they use the umbrella term nursing home when there's levels of care, but so just eliminate facility, because when you're working with a client, that is just immediately gonna trigger them and send them off the deep end, instead of keeping them reined in.
Do you guys have any other questions about anything that's clear as mud that for the process?
Sorry.
Just very quickly before, and I'll sit down, just some of my credentials are I'm a certified dementia practitioner. I have a master's certification in gerontology. I'm writing my comps for the master's right now, and I'm in the PhD program of gerontology. So like, this is my heart, my passion, my field, my study. I adore older adults and continue to collect letters behind my name to support them. So I'm here to support you, and I'm at your disposal. And that was something we had also talked about. If you had someone that you don't want to maybe refer, like,
And Senior Sync will pay for up to 2 hours of Michelle's time on your client's behalf. So then let's say that they feel like, okay, this is beneficial to us and it's gonna take a little more time, because sometimes it does take a little more time. Or a lot more time, just depends on the family. They at least get that introductory to like, okay, this is actually really helpful. Which, if you were in that position as a family member or a daughter or a son, and you found Michelle and you were like, this is really helpful for my family to kind of be on the same page, like pat on the back to my agent, because it's very hard to find those resources on your own. What was your question?
Oh, so are you a nurse practitioner?
I'm not clinical. I am strictly on that leadership and thought leadership.
And then is this part of the Good Life group? Are you part of this or?
Think of it separate, like similar to how we have Green Title and Guild. So we're a subsidiary, but not directly tied to, but there's a lot of the same leadership getting in it because we saw a need for it. And then ultimately what the plan is to create more senior living divisions within that can be kind of associated with the relocation department, so that you have a space to go to for just generalized questions versus having to kind of wait for a training or not know who to call. So that's in different phases of where we're going, but that's how it all kind of ties to.
So I have a very similar situation with the case study here with Mary 78. So if I tell Mary, hey, there's this great place called Senior Sync, and I say, go to this website, here's all the services that they provide. Because for example, she's feeling overwhelmed, she's trying to move everything out of the house, she's all alone, and there's a lot of deferred maintenance. Normally I'd be like, I have this handy person, we could, but can I tell her on this website, here's all these services, including handy people and lawn mowing services, and when you're ready, then we'll talk about getting here. How does that how can I give more information to that?
Right now, we're kind of working out a little bit, but I'll let you talk to it, because what we want to do is we want to almost safe harbor our vendors so that you can be the liaison between them. So they don't go somewhere else and then get directed and lose you out of that circle.
Okay.
And so the best way to make sure that you get paid for that referral too is to be able to put them into the system.
And then we can have that discovery call with them and talk to them more about the opportunities that are available as well.
Does
And
that
then you
trigger,
can have that.
does that trigger a call or do I say, wait, they're not ready for the phone call, but I'm gonna go ahead and register them?
Yep.
Okay.
You can do that, just put that in the notes. So this is a great this is a great segue. I'm glad you said that. Because if everyone wants to pull up their phone, I'll just show you where you can find the information. So because maybe it's 6-8 months from now and you're like, oh, I remember we had that, but I don't remember exactly what it is. You can just go to our website and all the information will be on there. So if you go to seniorsync.com. I would like to pull a tab out so it's a little bit more obvious, but right now you'll go to more. And then the two options will be there under more after you click more, and it should say, and I have examples in our sheet too, marketing, or it should say vendors. And the vendors, I'm adding them all on. We've just got that up and running, so I'm still adding them all on, but the ones that are on there give you an idea of the options that you have to look at. Did it work? If it didn't work, let me know because I want to know if it's broken at all. But you should be able, if you go to the marketing tab, just our name, seniorsync.com.
Oh.
Oh, no, it's okay. Hers did what yours did.
Earlier. Yeah,
Mhm.
okay.
It's saying.
I have to do www because when I just put
Part-
it took me to get that and
Need
need
to have
to buy the domain.
Oh, yeah.
So just to be clear, it's this one.
Yes.
www.seniorsync.com.
How often do you vet your vendors? Like,
So-
re-vet them?
Yeah, we'll probably continue to vet them after, especially, I would love feedback, any feedback that you guys have at any point, we want to hear it because we want to improve. Obviously, this is a new business model and our goal is to refine it and it's gonna break and we're gonna refine it and it's gonna break and we're gonna refine it. So anything that comes up, please let me know. But was everyone able to find it when they typed in www? Okay. And if you go to more, vendors are on there.
What's the criteria for a vendor to appear on this list?
So right now it's, we want to be sure that we've had a conversation with them and that we feel that they are, professional and going to return phone calls, things like that. Things that you would expect as a basic vendor that a lot of people just don't call you back. Don't answer phone calls. You refer them to a client and they just don't answer or call them back. So we've had conversations with these clients and we feel that confident in you. If you have someone that you think would be perfect that falls into one of these categories, please,
I got somebody for you.
yes, send them over to me. I'm happy to add them. I would love to do local as much as I can, just to give back to the community. And then if you go to agent marketing, these are going to be updated, like I was saying, and you can click on the edit now link, and then it will take you, just like our newsletters, to an editable Canva link. So you can play around with adding your name, your email, your picture, your additional logos, whatever the case may be, tweak some things about it and then send it out. But it will at least give all of you a baseline to start with for some marketing materials, because sometimes creating content is just, a special thing.
Would you guys be open to switching this section to maybe make it like password? Because like, to me, if I'm Mary and I see agent marketing, I'm like, wait a minute, they're just
Mhm.
like, you know what I mean?
So it's funny, we actually had a conversation yesterday about making it password protected. So yeah, our designer can do that.
Okay,
We just talked.
I don't want Mary to think that I'm treating her as a dollar sign.
Mm-hmm.
It's the only thing that.
100%, I can
Okay.
completely understand that, and that's a really good point. And let's say, so I was gonna kind of pulse the group and see if I make it password protected, I had it not password protected because I didn't want it to be another login, but show of hands, would you guys would you guys be okay with having another login so that it's a little bit more, okay? And you
Maybe
could just make
call
it a basic,
Maybe call it something else besides marketing, like agent resources. Because otherwise, like, to tack on to Aubrey.
Yep.
Mary would be like, oh, so,
Or you're just marketing.
yeah, you're just marketing it to me,
Yeah,
gotcha.
okay.
So have it say something else so it's not so obvious,
okay,
and
that's good feedback.
give them any reason to pause
Okay.
from collaborating with us.
Okay, yep, we could do agent resources and then that would just be vague and anybody who saw it public wise wouldn't probably.
Yeah.
Great, I love that feedback. Yeah, we will definitely work on getting that done. Any other questions or thoughts or scenarios that you've come across that you wanna throw out to the group?
What's the best phone number for me to give to Mary to call you, because she's probably not gonna scan the QR code? So what's the best way for me?
Yeah, it is, we just changed it. 983, no, it's 963. Right now, he can call we'll be updating it because we had to get a new phone number. Our old one was tied to a couple other things. So, right now my phone number's on the website personally,
Okay.
but it will be updated
Are
within
they
the next
supposed
few
to have their
days.
client call or are they supposed to?
The agent will want to submit via Google form just so we know to track the lead back to the agent, but they can call us anytime. Yeah.
I think it'll be personal preference too, because if you have some information about what your client is going through, then that gives us more of an opportunity to help. As we reach out to them, so that they feel more taken care of.
Or if they call us, then I can look it up and not ask them repetitive questions. Like, I don't wanna feel like a Verizon, you know?
Yeah.
You call and they're like, okay, what was your name? Last name, telephone number, you know?
Mhm.
Like, oh my God, I just gave it to 3 people, so.
So some of the other just items, since this is part educational, part informational about senior sync, and then just also part conversational too, is, there are some hurdles that come with either one, a family member going into placement, or two, selling a home that's either in an estate or someone that's downsizing. So there's definitely some issues. There's, I think one of the biggest that we run into as agents without being at the start of the actual process with the families is, who are my decision makers and who are legally allowed to sign? Who's signing the contracts? We need to know that information because we have to enter into listing agreements. And then we need to know who's the actual executor and then who's also somebody that you want to be informed on decision making. So if you have a family that has 4 siblings, a couple of them are out of state, one of them's here, one of them's taking the lead on doing things and getting the house ready, the other's taking the leads on the financials in the house, you really need to make sure that you're finding out who is the executor, who has power of attorney if they're going into a placement. That those are things that really, for us, liability wise, we have to know those things. So just kind of keep that in the back of your mind. If you have someone that's going into placement, find out who's got power of attorney. Otherwise, you will be going into those senior facility or communities and getting actual signatures from someone that's already been placed. And then you get into if they have the cognitive ability to actually be entering into a contract. So we never want a scenario where you put a listing in the ground and suddenly you get a call from a brother who is just mad and about ready to call the real estate commission because sister he hasn't talked to in 5 years hates her and didn't authorize the sale of it. So that's just one of those kind of button up things on my end. And title can always help you with that. So if you have a question about a scenario that comes up, you can always call Green Title and they can help walk you through some of what may or may not occur or what questions to ask in regards to the sale. So they're a great resource and they see all sorts of things. So you can help mitigate some of those items that might come up throughout the transaction beforehand by just kind of asking some preliminary questions, knowing you need to know who to call, who's in charge, and who's actually going to be signing. So
Can I double click on a word?
yeah.
Okay, so the word placement is what we use behind the
Yes.
scenes. But when we're talking with someone, especially an older adult, we don't wanna talk about, you know, like placement or, moving you in, or we're just moving, like people that are moving. But it's definitely language 100% that we're using, because we have placement agencies. and
Yeah.
That sort of thing, so, because it's gonna be triggering.
Do you wanna touch on, so to that point, do you wanna touch on the longer class that we'll be doing?
Yes, so I'm putting together a 3-hour CE class coming up hopefully in the next month or so, so keep an eye on that. What we'll be doing is we're going to be diving into a lot more details about placement, what the different levels of care are, also how you can be of assistance throughout that process, which would also come into the terminology of what to use, what to avoid. It will also go into the different generations and ages and things that you might come across when dealing with an aging adult going into a home, and some of the health barriers and some of the challenges that you might come up with. And then we'll have another piece that's just all about listings. So there will be also some marketing elements to listings. There will be more about conversations to have, questions to ask, ways to be a resource and with that vendor network. And then we'll also be having a lender. I'm in preliminary talks with Misty, but to come in and talk more about the financials. So we might have a lender and an estate or elder law company come in and talk to us about some of the things that could come up when it comes to the financial aspects of a person either going into a community or somebody that's passed. What challenges have you guys, what's some storytelling time about any situations that you've come up with that have been extremely challenging that you wish you would have had a little bit more idea kind of going into it, or something that came up that was totally out of the blue that you never anticipated from a typical transaction with an estate or someone downsizing with a lot of personal property or effects or.
I think this is great. I'm sure you guys are probably working on the vendor list, but if you guys wanna talk to an agent, be like, okay, first, it was the estate sale, then it was the junk haul, and then it was the repair, like all of those types of vendors to be on here would be awesome, cause then I can just lovingly go here,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Of course, I wanna help them with all that kind of stuff, but then it's, you know, making sure that we have the attorney, maybe just taking like, talk to an agent, go through the process of then, cause you guys have mentioned this is gonna take forever, we totally get that. So like if you guys can let us know when that vendor list is looking like you're feeling good about it, that'd be great, I think this is awesome, push out to people when that.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you said that, because I feel like the reason I wanted it on the website like that was so you did have just one spot where you just have everything right there. And you don't have to try to remember to go here and there and call this person, where do I find that information? So, yes, we will, I'm hoping by the end of next week, it's fully built out. I just have to, we have a lot and we just need to put them on the website, and some we still need to kind of.
Yeah, some takes some time for
Yeah.
sure.
Like having maybe a checklist,
Like a roadmap
A
of like
road-
where.
yeah, where to
kind of
go, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
If you do this, go to here, and- yeah.
Yeah.
I love
And the
that.
next steps. Yeah.
Maybe,
Yeah, exactly. Then you go chicks and ladders.
yeah.
Slide on down to the next
Yeah.
side.
Pass that one.
Climb back up.
I'm an adjunct at Creighton, and I actually did this of our long-term care even system.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So you're like, oh, you broke your hip, go to rehab. And then.
Oh, very good.
Pretty fun game, yeah.
It's a pretty fun game.
Okay,
When you're, oh, I'm sorry.
no, go for it.
Oh, when you're talking to, the family representative, so forth, do you also make yourself available to talk to other people in the family? Okay, so that, yeah, if they want to, yeah, cause when the first time we put, my mother into care, the kids, we were moving her stuff and, I'm like, oh, okay, here, well, we can send this to Goodwill and that, and the kids were, oh, no, but she's gonna need it again when she moves to someplace else, and it was kind of, they were younger and they didn't really understand that, no, grandma's not going to be living independently again, you know? So I just avoided it and rented a storage unit, so. But no, that's good to know that that other people in the family can also talk to you and.
There's also, we've been working with a few other companies, some partner companies, so ultimately, we're looking at an app to be able to facilitate some of these things as well. So that there could be different areas where the communication could be in one space for both the families, the real estate agent, and the placement person and community. So there's definitely, we're looking at it not being in its current form, but we want to be able to provide the resource right now because there is a need for it. But we want to keep building and adding on to that with, and we've talked to quite a few potential app providers or building our own. So that it can be all in one place. One space, one place, communication, resources, vendor network. That's where those 4 pillars tie in together is by having that one space. So that's the ultimate goal.
That way, if we're giving updates about the senior and they're feuding, we can just put the updates in the app and then everyone will still know, be informed. They don't have to call each other and get into it about whatever they're thinking about, so. Lots of high hopes, for moving forward, but.
Yeah. Yeah, make sure to sign out, please. Otherwise we'll track you down and.
Kind of been one big hub.
But
Yes.
I can give you my card on the back. Your code for the podcast.
Thank you.